There, let's bring out our next Young Scientist finalist for 2016, Amelia Day from Sumner, Washington. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm excited.
Excellent. Well, the lights are on. Ready to
Awesome.
roll. Good luck.
Okay. So you may be thinking by looking at my invention that it's just a soccer training tool. And while you're correct in the sense that that is how my invention started out, it has evolved quite a lot from there. My invention, the pressure soccer ball, is a pressure-sensitive tool that gives you sensory feedback on both your kicking accuracy and strength when aiming at this green square on the surface of the ball. After I came up with my original idea for my invention, I did some research and had a discussion where I sort of decided that my invention could be used for a much, much broader application: stroke rehabilitative physical therapy. Now, in my research, I found that what happens to cause a stroke is neural pathways inside the brain actually disconnect, and that neural pathways are what connect every single part of the brain, allowing us to function. When somebody's neural pathways disconnect, this can put their life on hold for a long period of time, exactly the problem that I want to help solve with my invention. When somebody goes through a stroke, they can lose their memory, their balance, and even simple leg functions such as moving your leg like this, things that we as normally functioning people take for granted. What makes my invention revolutionary in the field of stroke therapy is that it uses auditory feedback in stroke ball therapy. All of the stroke balls that are used in stroke therapy today are just bouncy balls, nothing more. And while my invention uses some of the same techniques, it takes it to an entirely new level by implementing the sensory feedback. With my invention, I want to help rebuild neural pathways inside the brain by utilizing those broken neural fragments. What also makes my invention new in the field of stroke therapy is that it's actually fun. And I know that may sound pretty trivial, but it's something that could actually be really helpful for rehabilitating patients. 265 million people worldwide play soccer regularly, and many more play it just for fun. By utilizing such a simple interface in the context of a physical therapy center, my hypothesis is that patients will actually be able to recover sooner because they will be working harder because they're having fun. Now, it looks kind of complicated up here to use, but in all reality, it's fairly simple for patients to use. All you have to do is set the ball on the ground with the green square facing you, oriented based on which leg muscles you want to work, and then kick it hard. As you can see, if you kick it with enough force and accuracy, you'll be able to hear auditory feedback. As you can see, there are lots of parts that go into my circuitry, but the main part that makes it all work is the pressure sensor. Now, the pressure sensor, when you're not pressing on it with enough force, it acts as a resistor. But when you are pressing on it with enough force, it stops acting as a resistor and allows electrical flow to flow through the circuit, allowing for the auditory feedback. Now, you may have seen Raspberry Pi on my circuitry flow map, and I'm sorry to tell you, I did not put an actual Pi in my circuitry. It's a mini computer. I programmed it to respond to changes in the circuitry using an if-then program. If you press down on the pressure sensor with enough force, then you'll be able to hear auditory feedback through the Bluetooth earbuds, a speaker for the purpose of presentation, and that will actually reinforce the correct kick, that will rebuild neural pathways, and it will give you a rush of dopamine, making you work harder. So the reason I chose these particular 3M materials was that for each of my problems, there was a different issue. I had to, for when I was sealing the ball, I used the 3M plastic repair glues. And I used those because they offered a hard and sturdy seal, whereas when I was gluing down the pressure sensor, I used the 3M super glues because they also offered a good seal, but made it so that I could take off the pressure sensor if necessary. One thing that I was really, really worried about in the beginning of my invention sort of process was that there is actual circuitry inside the ball. And as you can imagine, circuitry can be pretty fragile, and I wasn't sure whether it would actually be able to withstand a kick. But through some rigorous testing, I actually found that I had nothing to worry about. I fixed any issues with my circuitry, made sure that the circuitry inside was sturdy and flexible, and know now that all of my circuitry is actually reliable and every part of my ball is reliable. So now you may be thinking, okay, this is cool and all. I mean, she's got all these Raspberry Pi and stuff, but would it actually work in the real world? And my answer is yes. In conclusion, my invention can be applied to many, many different types of therapy. Not just stroke therapy, though that is the main focus. My invention can be applied to arthritis therapy, leg and ankle therapy, and even inside the realm of stroke therapy, it can be applied to many different types of therapy. It's even backed up by professional physical therapists for theoretical application, and it uses so many different therapy techniques. With the pressure soccer ball, I want to help patients regain their neural functions actually recover and get back to what they love as soon as possible. I'd really like to thank a lot of people who helped me work on this project. Many people from 3M shipped materials to me, obviously my mentor and my science teacher who I worked closely with since actually last November, which is 11 months ago. And I am just very thankful for all of these people who have helped me along my process. And I really can't wait to continue with this project. And
Thank you very much. That was a great presentation. Could you tell us what motivated you to want to help stroke victims?
well, actually, this started as a soccer therapy tool. Not soccer therapy, sorry, soccer training tool, because I'm a soccer player, and one of the things that I found difficult was when you're trying to kick a soccer ball correctly, and when you're kicking on goal or doing long kicks, you cannot tell where on the ball you're supposed to kick. Even if you have a coach with you, even on one-on-one training, a human cannot really see exactly where you're kicking on the ball and give you that feedback. So that was my original application, but then I had some discussions and I sort of began to see that my invention could be used for something much more than just a soccer training tool. People who are going through strokes have so many issues, and I can only imagine how hard it is to have these functions that you used to be able to do, but now you're trying to do them, and it's just not working.
Great job. Have you field tested your product with actual patients?
Not yet, but that is something that I'd really like to do in the future. This stroke therapy tool will be used in the therapy process. It's a whole bunch of different tools together. So it would definitely be a long amount of testing to do, and with the amount of time I was given to do this project, I didn't really have the time to do that, but definitely in the future, that would be an option that I'd really love to do.
Excellent job. You mentioned that you tested how it can hold up to being kicked a number of times. Did you test how many kicks it could withstand? Because once somebody acquires it, they'll want it to last for a long time.
Oh, I did not test exactly how many kicks it can withstand, but the materials that I use are very durable. It's an actual soccer ball, and as you know, soccer balls can last a very long time, many years without breaking. So I believe that it could be used for a long period of time, making it both cost-effective and versatile for the amount of patients it can use.
Awesome job. This is really cool. So I wanted to ask about the force necessary. So what is that force, and how could you adjust that depending on patients' needs?
Okay, so the force necessary to activate it is around, based on my sort of guesses and research that I've done based on soccer kicking, is about 200 newtons of force. And it can actually go up to a lot further than that, so depending on how hard you're kicking it. But it does require a certain amount of force to kick it, because obviously you want to build up that strength in the leg. And in the future, I really would like to make it more personable for different patients, such as an elderly patient using it won't be able to kick as hard as a high school patient using it. So I'd want to increase and decrease the resistance in the circuit, which wouldn't be too difficult.
Great innovation. Maybe you can just comment a little bit on how you interacted with your mentor throughout the process.
My mentor was extremely helpful in providing me with editing for my presentation and for talking in general. And she also provided me with a lot of materials and insights on where I could go with this innovation. She's one of the people who suggested, well, maybe you could use Bluetooth with this. And I found that that could actually help patients immerse themselves in the sound. The more sensory feedback, the better for rebuilding neural functions. So, yeah.
What's your estimated production cost?
The estimated production cost would be about, trying to think, probably $200 with the Raspberry Pi. But if I were to use a more cost-effective, say, Arduino in the project, maybe that would bring the cost down. And for the amount of patients that are using the tool, for the amount of different therapies that it can be used for, it's actually very cost-effective, as well as therapy tools are just very expensive in general. So, yeah.
Thank you, Amelia. I appreciate the presentation. Did you explore any other possible solutions to stroke therapy, and what made you settle on this one?
Well, actually, I did explore some other different therapy patient solutions. I even thought about how my pressure sensor circuit could be used for a hand grip, as well as maybe sort of a kicking thing where you just kick it like this, like a platform that goes like this. So I decided on this one because I already had been developing this one from the soccer training tool. But the same circuitry that's used in my project can be used for many, many different other types of stroke therapy other than just leg and ankle therapy.
It's a super job. What was the most challenging thing you had to overcome?
Definitely getting the Raspberry Pi to connect to Bluetooth. I spent so long trying to get it to work. I did all the tutorials. I'm not actually a programmer. I just decided, you know what, this would be really cool to do and just learn from there on the spot during my summer mentorship, actually. But the most challenging part was definitely connecting it to Bluetooth. I had to, oh, okay.
That was really good. All right. Yep. All right, so we are halfway through. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back in a few minutes with the second half of the Discovery Education 3M Young Scientist 2016 Finals. We'll see you in a few minutes.